Welcome to Channel World Story 22, a channel that always discusses the history of countries in the world. On this occasion, Channel World Story 22 will discuss prostitution during the Dutch colonial era. So there is a story of a beautiful prostitute who became a bone of contention by the Dutch army. This woman often serves white people or Dutch soldiers. Until one day a respectable man from the Dutch army wanted to marry her. But this woman did not want to marry him until this woman finally had to lose her life by a customer who used to date her. Then what is the next story of prostitution in this Dutch colonial era? Before proceeding to the discussion, please support by liking, commenting, subscribing and sharing, so that this channel can continue to grow. Fientia de Phoenix was still in his early 20s in 1912. He was an attractive-looking Indo. That's why a gentleman named Jemza Brinkman was smitten. Brinkman was a member of the Societate Concordia and was known as a John's Dutchman. His name has its own place in the history of the colonial night world. Brinkman loved Omar's hostel. There was Fientia who was willing to sleep in exchange for money. Increasingly sleeping with Fientia, Brinkman wanted to monopolize Fientia by making him his concubine. Brinkman wants to be Fientia's constant sleeping partner. Unfortunately, Brinkman's wish was rejected by Fientia, who wanted to be free. Brinkman was annoyed and Fientia was strangled to death. Fientia's death became news material. From the police investigation, Brinkman's actions were discovered and the death penalty ensnared him. Despite being sentenced, Brinkman never served his death sentence. He was rushing to kill himself. He couldn't believe that a rich white man had to pay with his own life for killing an Indo prostitute. He believes more in his friends who have big influence, wrote Rosian Anwar in Small History of Petite Histoire Indonesia Volume 1, 2004. 155. Jemza Brinkman was an example of an honorable John's KBBI. A man who likes to make fun of women, but colonial law gave him no mercy. His character as a white person certainly shocked the moralist Dutch people. It turns out that from their race there is a Masha who is also a heinous killer. Jemza Brinkman isn't the only respectable Dutchman with a unique sexual case. The book Seasons Change. A Glimpse of Indonesian History 1925-1950, 1985. 51-52 compiled by Rosian Anwar and Happy Farewell, See You in Better Times, 1988. 17 by J. C. Bykik also notes that a high-ranking colonial official was caught having intercourse with a boy native man in a hotel around 1938. This official was eventually imprisoned in Sukamiskin for 1.5 years. In addition, there is also a MULO director who committed suicide because he was afraid that his homosexual acts against children would be found out. In colonial times, the options for Dutch men to give up their sexual desires were not many. They find it difficult to find Dutch women. In the end, they made many native women njai. Another option. Make love to their maid or go to a brothel. Mashers, of course, are not only Dutch. There are also other groups such as Chinese people who are mashers. Oi Adzia is the most famous. There are no less number of Indonesians in the ranks. Not surprisingly, prostitution was not uncommon in the past, even today. Military familiar with prostitution. Prostitution in the colonial period was also related to the military. Prostitution is a special charm for young people who want to join the military. Access to prostitution is one of the attractions of becoming a soldier, wrote Budi Susanto and A. Maid Tony Supriyatma in a brief. Cultural Strategies, 1945-1995, 1995. 17. At least, being paid as a soldier allows them to enjoy prostitution. However, in the colonial military KNIL, there were also Dutch people who could not marry Dutch people. Those with enough money, usually officers, could have Nyai, a woman who manages the household and also serves as bed partner. Soldiers below are usually trapped in the world of prostitution as customers. There were also among the native soldiers who had wives. Where they work, their children and wives are usually taken with them. Intercourse, especially with regular partners, is considered as something healthy. In the KNIL, as acknowledged by one of its former members, Bodiajo, who later became Minister of Information at the start of the new order, women were degraded. Overcoming sexual problems is also taught there. We have to channel our sexual desires with prostitutes. The condition is, before playing, you have to rub the SN ointment until it hurts. This is the only way to prevent venereal diseases, admits Bodiajo in his memoir, Who Wants Me to Tell, 1996. 23. The habit of making love to soldiers contributed to the birth of brothels in the colonial era. Usually, where there are KNIL prisons, there are also prostitutes in that city, wrote Major General Somano Sosrotmojo, who in colonial times was a government doctor in Kalimantan, in his memoir, From Rimba Raya to Jakarta Raya, 1981. 229. The brothels are usually not far from the barracks. It can be on the side, it can be on the back. Because the soldiers had to unwind. Around the former KNIL barracks area in Balikpapan, near the Polras, for example, there was once a sordid place on Jalan Dondang. The crimes of KNIL soldiers during the colonial era were not only outside the barracks. In prison, disobedience is common. Francis Gouda in Dutch Culture Overseas. Colonial Practices in the Dutch East Indies 1900-1942. 2007 states, public opinion in European metropolises has formed a scandalous image of military barracks in the Indies, Indonesia, as a place full of immorality, p. 198. Gouda cited that hundreds of soldiers slept with the girls or maids in the barracks and were like mating animals. That was the thought of white people whose country was made rich thanks to the persistence of soldiers who were considered immoral. Demeaning indigenous women. After the colonial era was over and the revolution was turbulent, the barracks world remained close to obscenity. Whether it's the KNIL, who are mostly Indonesian or foreign KNIL, they also become a share of the prostitution market. A Dutch soldier, as quoted by Gert Oostind and friends in Dutch Soldiers in Indonesia 1945-1950, 2016. 254-256. Told how the military authorities tried to prevent prostitution under the strict supervision of their military police or disgusting spectacles about the dangers of venereal disease caused by wrong ch. Oos a love partner. Even so, there were still Dutch soldiers who made love to native prostitutes who needed money because the economy was difficult during the revolution pp. 254-256. When a female prostitute offered herself, the soldiers laid her down. They fucked the prostitute one by one. When one plays, the others watch. In the eyes of the Dutch soldiers, indigenous women prostitutes had very low prestige. Black women are very easy to find, but I don't want to because 80% of them are unhealthy. They had already been used by the Japanese and British Indians, you could say they were rotten, admits a soldier, Marinus Art, as quoted by Oostind and Friends p. 260. Venereal diseases were also easily spread among the Masha soldiers. Regarding venereal disease, soldiers from the Indonesian side also got it. There are cadets from our National Military Academy who are practicing at the front to become victims of that prostitute, wrote Abdul Haris Nasution in Fulfilling the Call of Duty. Memories of Youth 1990.